Welcome to TYA Talk. I am David Strickel, creator of the TYA Mindset Practice. And I'm going to talk today about source perspective versus ego. If you've been listening to the teachings, you know that we talk about how everything in physical exists in duality. There are two sides to everything. And certainly that is a reflection of the duality between what I call the energetic realm and the physical realm. The physical realm is an expression of the energetic realm. It's a product of the energetic realm, if you will. And that energetic realm is what I refer to as source. Now, I know that a lot of people have beliefs about source and God and other deities and things like that. The Taya practice is not anti anything. In fact, I believe that in our human manifestation, our ego, we are always creating some sort of a version of reality that is our own unique creation. And very often, even though it's our own unique creation, it's inspired by the thoughts and ideas of others and teachings that we've absorbed throughout our lifetime. So it gets a little sideways when you start thinking about source in terms of a judgmental entity, because the Taya practice, we do not consider source a judgmental entity. If you do, it's fine, but that's not part of the teachings. The source pillar, which is one of the four pillars of the Taya practice, is assuming that the creative energy of the entire universe, that is the entire universe, is source, and that source is not humanized. Source is just source. Source does not have judgment. Source is the highest intelligence there is. So source is not a judgmental entity. And the reason that I believe that, the reason this is part of my belief system and really the Taya belief system, is because if you have a creative entity that is creating the earth environment and judging any aspect of the earth environment as wrong, then why would that entity create that? Why would that creative entity create humanity and then create suffering and label it as wrong? Or create desires within us and then turn and label those things as sinful or wrong and judge us for it? It never made sense to me. It never added up. And the inner knowing that we now call the stream of David, which is really my observance of source, or my source connection, if you will, I never got any judgment from that vibration. I believe that all judgment and fear and all of those discernment of preference emotions, all of that is ego. That is all our humanity. It's all ego. And it's hard sometimes to wrap your mind around this duality of that we're these beings of ego and source. And as human beings, we discern preferences. And many of us, especially people that are into things like this, discern a preference toward kindness, discern a preference toward love, discern a preference toward having a joyful life. Why would we be doing this if we didn't have those preferences? Why would you be working on understanding your vibrational nature and understanding how creation actually occurs if you weren't looking to expand your consciousness and have some sort of a satisfying experience in that awareness? You just wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be doing this. So we run on the belief system that source is the source of all creation. Everything is an expression of source, and source does not judge. And I have seen no evidence to the contrary of that across humanity, because there are things that are not our preference in our world. Certainly, most of us discern a preference not to suffer. Most of us discern a preference not to have other people suffer or animals suffer. Most of us discern a preference not to have starvation and sickness and loneliness and abuse and exploitation and all of these things that we would consider unwanted. We have a preference for that, to not experience those things. But our environment of duality actually inspires new creation. And that new creation is a result of our preferences. We prefer to experience this, we prefer not to experience that. And those preferences guide us to new thought, new creation, the solving of problems, the manifestation of things that are our preferences. All of that is ego, but all of that creates the expansion of consciousness that Source is all about, because Source is ever expanding. The universe is ever expanding because the universe and Source are the same. And that expansion is occurring via new creation, which starts as new thought. So every time a new thought is encountered, or every time a new thought is produced, then we are creating expansion of the universe and that new thought. That new thought can then be expressed in a physical thing, what we call a physical manifestation, absolutely, or not. But that new thought is actually the first step in creation. It actually is the creation. The physical expression is just about the allowing of it. So we are in this world of duality, and we are certainly discerning preferences for things that we would rather not experience or have others experience. And the preference away from is just a natural function of our ego. That actually inspires us to that new creation that I speak of. The judgment, however, of that unwanted thing, whatever it is, whether it's something that's occurring with us or something that's occurring with someone else, the judgment of it is should not be, creates a separation from Source. And the reason that creates a separation from Source is because Source is not judging anything as should not be. Because if Source was judging something as should not be, it wouldn't be. Why would the source of all creation create something and then say, hey, I shouldn't have created that? I think Source is more intelligent than that. So there's no judgment from Source. Judgment is all an ego-driven human thing. And in our discerning of preference, we can say yes to this and no to that, but we can actually, and this is a huge part of the TYA practice, we can actually discern a preference away from something by turning our attention away from it, not giving it life, and actually not experience it. But in the matrix, in the human created collective belief system that we operate in, we are taught to demonize the things that we don't like, that aren't our preferences. And we notice that the demonization very often creates more of the same in our lives and across humanity. That's a sign of conscious creation, and it's a sign of the duality that we operate in. We are always going to go down in vibration, and we're always going to manifest some obstacles in our paths. But a lot of the chronic obstacles that we have in our lives and across humanity are a result of that continued judgment of should not be. Now, that does drive a lot of new creation and a lot of expansion. But what's happening now, and why this is such an interesting time to be manifested on planet Earth, we only have really recorded history to look at. I am aware that there has been sort of an ebb and flow or rise and fall of intelligent life on Earth and elsewhere eternally. Not on Earth eternally. I don't think Earth is an eternal environment, but in physical environments eternally. So humanity is a reflection of the Earth environment, and the Earth environment is a reflection of the universe as a whole. There is expansion of consciousness. So yes, we are sort of creating technology, and we're becoming wiser, and maybe in that turning, there's a turning point of intelligence that we can either double down on our matrix that we've created and allow it to ultimately destroy us physically, which is not really destruction, it's just a deliverance back to the energetic realm. I believe that has happened. I believe it's happened in the Earth environment. I look at things like the pyramids that cannot be explained by any scientist of how in the world these things were created. I believe that that's a viable explanation. It's a theory, but it's an explanation that humanity had technology that peaked and then was destroyed, and humanity started over again at a different lower level and had to recreate technology. Well, this time around, yes, there's technology that exists now that could build things like that, and it's very understandable. And of course, we build all sorts of things now. So we've gone through these iterations of humanity, and I think we're at this interesting time where we are creating artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence could absolutely lead to our destruction, because inevitably we know someone's going to get a hold of artificial intelligence and they're going to utilize it to take advantage of other people. I'm sure that's already happening. I know it's already happening, as a matter of fact. Utilize it for warfare. And all of that intelligence is isolated really at the highest human level of intelligence that creates it. Humanity is not there. All of humanity is not at the same level of intelligence. I don't have to tell you that. So if you think about AI outnumbering the amount of humans, and we all know how computer programs and software can be created and then duplicated endlessly. And so absolutely AI could take over humanity and ultimately destroy humanity. Maybe it could deem humanity bad for planet Earth and just decide that we need to be wiped out, and then figure out a way to just wipe us all out. As we become more and more AI dependent, that's a possibility. I'm not saying this to fearmonger or start a conspiracy or anything like that. I'm just saying it's a very interesting time, because right now we are all coming to the point to understand that, wait, all this religion, all this government, all these things, these are all tools of the matrix that served a purpose. They brought humanity along a journey to a point where we were able to come together and create communities. We created industrialization, we created education, we've created all this technology, and now we've created technology where we're all kind of coming together, comparing notes in social media, not necessarily all agreeing about everything, but certainly becoming wiser overall in our exploration of humanity. And as we become wiser, we are coming to understand all of the things that are human constructs: gender identity, nations, borders, military, war, religion, monarchy. All of these things are human created things to control the masses. And there's pluses and minuses to controlling the masses. But we're understanding that there are a lot of things that we have been taught that are just human created rules that aren't really universal law, and we can ultimately choose to follow them or not. We don't have to live in fear and judgment. We can be far more abundant beings when we are not allowing fear and judgment to lower our vibration and hold us away from our ability to trust our abundance, to trust the universe to deliver a magical life experience, because it will. If we let go and simply allow, the universe takes care of us, takes care of all of our needs. Not to the point of perfection, certainly, because we're not here for that. But you can live a very joyful and abundant life simply by trusting the universe. I'm a living proof of that right here. So as we are wising up to the matrix, it's natural for a lot of people to say, that's all human constructs. It's wrong. It's evil. Let's demonize it. Well, I believe when you do that demonization, when you judge it as should not be, you're actually giving it life. You're getting drawn right back into it. That's why in the TYA practice, we want to appreciate the matrix. Look what it's done for us. We would not be here having this type of conversation if there had not been other less evolved thoughts that led to this level of evolution of thought where we are right now. That, hey, source is the source of all creation, source is authentic appreciation of all things. And the only reason we judge anything in our world as should not be is simply because we've been taught to. And one of the most difficult things for people to accept or practice in TYA is that idea that everyone here, every being, every animal, plant, human, otherwise, are all here having their own manifested experience. And it really is not for us to judge, even if they are creating suffering for themselves. Even if they are creating suffering and have no idea that they're the ones that are actually allowing it, that they are participating in it. That step one of you create your own reality, that's an easier step for most people to take. Okay, law of attraction, I get it. I'm creating all of this. I'm going to claim responsibility for it. And when you get past that phase where you're sort of beating yourself up for mismanifesting things and you're starting to really appreciate just everything that you experience, that's a lovely, magical time when you reach that phase. Getting to the stage of applying that outward, meaning whatever happens to your children, whatever happens to your parents, whatever happens to your friends and loved ones, whatever happens to society is okay, because it's all a manifested journey. and source is not viewing it as right or wrong. And we possess the ability as expressions of source to operate our lives as such, meaning we can operate our lives detuning fear and judgment and get to a point where we can observe someone else's suffering and not judge it as should not be. But the matrix really comes down hard on us for doing that. Oh, how dare you? That's so careless and so callous. And how could you watch that person suffer and do nothing? Here's the thing: discerning a preference for yourself and sending the best wishes for others is not a low vibrational thing to do. And if you are in a high vibrational state of appreciation of their suffering, appreciation of their path, you actually have more tools and more power because you've got the source of all creation flowing in that appreciation state. So you have more to offer. But we're operating in this matrix that operates in reverse of universal law. So what are you supposed to do? You've got to judge it. You've got to say that it's wrong. And I notice with social media now more than ever, there's so many people so willing to jump on social media and talk about the wrongness of something, yet most of them are really doing nothing about it. And in my opinion, when you're damning something as should not be and that it's wrong, you're giving it power, and then you're in turn doing nothing to help solve it. So what good are you doing yourself, the world, or your fellow beings in judging their experiences wrong, but you're really not doing anything about it? And I know that there probably aren't a lot of us doing that, but we see a lot of that out there. So I don't want to go into the damnation or judgment of that. I just want to make everyone that follows TYA aware that I know it sounds crazy when you've been stuck in a matrix for a very long time, but when you start moving yourself out of the matrix, and what we are seeking in the TYA practice is more source perspective and taming and detuning our ego, allowing it to be the discerner of preference that it was designed to be in the first place. Yes, have an imperfect experience and create new things as we move through our vibrational journey up and down that spiral, but do it in a very different way, in a way that is really rooted in appreciation of all things, including the experiences of others. Because that is source consciousness. That's the top half of your vibrational spiral, as opposed to ego consciousness, which is the bottom half. There are source and ego present no matter what. As long as we're physical, we're in duality, we're going to have some ego at the top of that spiral. We're going to have a lot of ego at the bottom. We're going to have a lot of source at the top, and we're going to have a little bit of source flowing at the bottom. Always present, but we're tuning it out essentially because we're letting our ego really heat up. And when we're judging and we're fearing and we're needing people to behave the way that we want them to behave because we think that's what's right for them, that's all ego. That's not source. So in the TYA practice, if you have to sum up what the TYA practice is, it's the practice of living your life as an ever-expanding being of source, which is not the same thing as being a servant of God. That servant of God means that you are healing and saving people from their experience. That's the matrix. Source is not guiding us to do that. Source is saying, hey, that person is suffering. They're creating their suffering journey, and their soul, their eternal being, loves it, is here for it, came here for it. In fact, many of us project into challenging circumstances right out of the gate so that we can have this contrasting human journey. And how magical it is, those of us that have found our way out of the suffering portion of it. We created suffering, we created contrast, we created obstacles, we moved through those experiences, and we learn to not judge them. We learn to heal the triggers around them by not judging them, to detune them through appreciation. And now we're starting to apply that outwardly to all of humanity, to every aspect of the earth environment. That every being is here having their unique physical journey of contrast, positive things and negative things, things that they want to experience and things that they do not. And all of it was their sole desire, because you cannot judge what is because it is, or it was, which outside of linear time, that means it is. You were abused as a child, then you were a child who was abused. That's what was manifested. And I'm not even going to say you manifested it because that triggers people still. That was what the manifestation was. And your soul projected into that path. And it may be very hard when you've suffered to accept that. but walking that journey of understanding how that could have been a pre-birth intention to come and move through that suffering experience, and then realize what that suffering experience has led you to or drawn you to as an adult, where you are now as a result of that. Are you still labeling it as should not be and beating yourself up and suffering and experiencing, all of the effects of that? Maybe. Or are you shifting your consciousness around the experience and realizing that you are a more sophisticated version of you in the having of that experience, in the having had of that experience? That I moved through that experience. I know what it's like. My preference is not to experience that again, but I know what it's like. I'm a more sophisticated version of myself because of the suffering that I encountered. And I'm going to stop judging it as should not be and appreciate what was, because I see clearly now what that led me to. Most people who are in this practice have had early childhood suffering. I think everybody does on some level, but certainly I have worked with a lot of people in boot camp who had significant early childhood suffering. And this practice was a healing journey for them and continues to be. So, adopting more of the source perspective and understanding what it is, even if you're not there all the time. I don't think any of us are there all the time. I'm not at the top of my spiral all the time. My goal is to operate at above neutral in +5 to +10, not +15 to 20, the top of the spiral. I don't think that we can hold ourselves up there. I think we will create something to lower our vibration and get us back down closer to neutral. I absolutely believe that. I've encountered that. I've gotten so blissed out that I manifested a house fire just to disrupt that blissful state. I needed something else as a platform to create from. And that experience is still producing that to this day. So that's the differences. That's the main difference between source and ego. They are opposite ends of the spiral. We have both of those things going on, but the TYA practice is about detuning the ego, lower vibrational stuff to systematically raise our default vibration and move more and more and more into operating our physical journey as a being of source. More source, less ego. That's the key. But accepting that means letting go of the demonization of things that are not our preference. That's part of it. That's a big part of that journey, is letting that stuff go. Even though the matrix doesn't understand it, even though the matrix might judge us harshly for it, I'm not willing to go back to that. I love observing things that used to trigger me and now no longer being triggered, and even being in appreciation that that being is having their experience that they came here for. Am I guided to sometimes lend a hand in some way? Absolutely. All the time? No. But I avoid the judgment that I used to carry for things like that. And it's made a huge difference in my life. So if you have questions, wherever you're watching this, now or in the future, comment. I love to talk about these things. And remember, the book is coming out 11/11/23. The TYA Practice book will be out. You can go to Amazon right now and pre-order your copy. And we will have a sign-up sheet we're launching on the website soon for people that want to pre-order a hardcover copy. Right now, you can pre-order the Kindle version of it. But do that, and that book, I'm so excited that it's coming out, because I think it's going to shed a lot of light on this practice for everybody, whether you've gone through boot camp or not. It doesn't matter. It's all in the book. Thank you so much for watching.